everyone. Welcome to State of the Art, a live stream show brought to you by our video streaming company, Mainstream Media LLC, located right here in Chicago. I'm your host, Shelby McClain, and on this show, you will experience live streaming insights, production tips, social strategies, and deep dives on various topics. Also, we want to use this show to test out our new technology first, so we can showcase them in future productions. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, so if you have any comments, questions, or curiosities, please comment below or use the hashtag #SodaLive so we can share your thoughts at the end of the show. So let's get right to it. This episode is all about live event prep. What are the key conversation points and decisions that should be made for putting on a live event? Whether you are the client or the streaming team, you always want to be prepared to talk about the roadmap to execute an impactful live stream event. Now, let us deep dive into those key points. We have Nick Bacon, our team's managing director, here to talk to you more about getting your live event off the ground and running.
Thanks, Erica. I am super pumped to be with you today to be talking about something that's so important, how to prepare for a live stream. Since 2013, we've produced a little over 1,000 live streams now in venues all across the country. So at this point, we have a pretty good sense of what's required in order for your event to be a success. Today, we're going to go over what's on Mainstream's checklist as we prepare our clients for their events. I think that this broadcast is going to be really useful it'll be pretty useful for live stream production companies, but it's especially meant for event planners, social media managers, and communications directors who are maybe thinking about putting on their first live stream. So, when we're preparing for a live stream, there are 3 different buckets of things that we need to prepare. The first is the venue, second is your audience, and the third is the production itself. So we'll go over all 3 of those today, and we're going to start with your venue. Now, when you prepare your venue, it doesn't matter whether your venue is a conference room or a football stadium or anything in between. There's 3 signal flows that you need to understand. And those signal flows are the audio, the video, and the internet. So we're going to start with audio. Now, at most venues, your venues are going to provide you with all the audio equipment necessary for in-room amplification. So it's going to sound good within your venue. What that means, what they normally do, is they'll provide your speakers with a microphone. Your playback devices, your video playback, your computers, things like that, those are all going to get amplified, and every sound element is fed into a professional mixer. That mixer then feeds a balanced signal to your in-room amplification. And if you have that set up, then it's actually pretty easy to get high-quality audio for your live stream.
So what are some gotchas that make broadcasting audio different than just amplifying it at an event?
That's a great question, Erica. I'm so glad that you asked it. One of the things that we always say, our mantra is mix to -6. So what that means is every individual sound element peaks at -6 decibels on your sound mixer. That happens normally so long as we kind of talk to your audio engineer or your venue staff beforehand. But sometimes audio engineers tend to crank the in-room amplification and send a low signal. What happens there is we get that low signal on the stream, and then your audience has a tough time hearing what's going on, right? So mix to -6, if you send your audio to that level, then you're going to be good.
Okay, and what if the venue isn't capable of providing audio, or maybe your room is too small to use a full speaker system, or maybe the house can't run you an audio line?
You should probably just go to another venue.
Okay.
Or no, you shouldn't actually do that. In that case, just talk to your stream team. Your producer normally has a bag of tricks that they can use to get good audio. The solution is never to just deal with bad audio, though. An audience will deal with lower resolution video feeds, but as soon as your audio gets distorted or doesn't sound right, then they just leave in droves. So always get good audio. That's important. Next thing to think about is your presentation feed or your video feed, your visual feeds at your event. This is especially important for lectures or PowerPoint presentations or product demos. And the way it normally works is your venue provides you with a lectern or a podium, and that has a couple of cables inside it, either an HDMI or a VGA. Those cables get plugged into a computer, and then the signal gets routed either straight to a projector or preferably back to a tech booth where your event TD can send that signal to kind of wherever they need it to go. Your stream team, your stream producer can intercept that signal kind of anywhere along the signal flow path, and that's the best way to do it, is to just grab that signal that's being projected. The reason that that's the best way to do it is because that allows your presenter to work on their presentation right up until the last second, which they all end up doing anyways. But it guarantees that what we're broadcasting is exactly what they're presenting. So it stays in sync with their presentation, it's generally high resolution, and it's going to look great.
I see. So what are some things to watch out for?
One thing that's kind of like weird to watch out for that you should pay attention to is known as EDID compliance. EDID is EDID. And basically, it determines whether your capture device is allowed to capture a signal. So think of it as like a ticket to the show, right? If your capture device or your encoder doesn't have a ticket to the presentation, to the show, then it's not going to be able to capture that feed. So that's something that we normally check well in advance and just make sure that we're going to be able to get that signal. If you don't have that signal, or if there is an issue with EDID compliance, then the solution for that is to actually have a dedicated graphics operator who's running a presentation in tandem, and that's running directly into your encoder. But obviously that's more people, that's more equipment, and that can increase your cost. So third thing when it comes to preparing your venue is the internet. And this is probably the most important thing for your live stream, right? You have to confirm the internet capabilities of your venue. Now ideally, your venue is going to provide hardlined internet access, which is run from an Ethernet cable through a port in the wall, right? Preferably, that hardline is going to have a static IP address with dedicated bandwidth. So what that means is even if there's a ton of other devices on the network and the network is getting overloaded, it's not going to impact your stream, right? Because you have your own dedicated bandwidth. For a full HD broadcast, we normally ask for 10 megabits per second of upload speed, which is not too much, but it's just something you have to kind of ask for in advance. If you're not able to get that much, then your stream team will probably recommend that you drop the resolution to 720p or 480p, something like that. Another thing to look out for is firewalls. Firewalls are generally not a problem if you're going to like a big venue, but if you're doing a broadcast through a government building or a public institution or a hospital or something like that, there's going to be firewalls that will prevent you from accessing your streaming destination, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And so that's something that you need to check well in advance of your broadcast to make sure that the firewall has been, or that your streaming platform has been whitelisted for your event.
Okay, I see. So are there anything else to watch out here for?
Yeah, I would say whenever your venue agrees to provide you with bandwidth, make sure that you get in writing what they're providing you and negotiate upfront. Venues can charge all sorts of different prices for bandwidth. We've seen prices as much as $20,000 a day for a 15 megabit per second pipe, which is a lot of money, but like you don't really have a lot of other options, right? So if you talk to your venue well in advance, if you tell them exactly what you need, then they'll generally give you favorable rates. But once they give you that favorable rate, you have to get it in writing and make sure that they're providing that. So that completes the first bucket of preparing your venue. The next thing to think about is preparing your audience. So every audience has different expectations, but their number one expectation is that they are involved in the broadcast. A live stream should feel like an organic extension of your event and not just an add-on experience. Your audience needs to be engaged with your content, which means they need to be able to interact in some way, whether it's with the content itself, with your presenters, or if it's with each other. That's something that you need to think about. The streaming platform that you choose is going to dictate how that engagement happens. So for example, if you're doing a broadcast on Facebook Live, you're going to see a lot of comments, you're going to see the emoji reaction things, you're going to see stuff like that. As opposed to Twitch, for example, where your audience's expectation is that there is a live chat that is constantly going. And so if you're on Twitch, you're going to need to have a presence in that chat to be able to like communicate with people in real time. YouTube also has that live chat, so that's an expectation there as well. So 3 things to think about. 1, where have I built my audience? So chances are your organization has already put marketing dollars behind building an audience on at least one of these platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever. Choose the platform where you have seen the best engagement and just go there. Also think about where your audience is going to be watching. If they're watching at home, then Facebook or YouTube might work great. But if they're at work, they might not be able to watch a Facebook event. And so you need to kind of think about that as well. 3rd thing to think about is how visible should your broadcast be? If you want as many eyeballs as possible on it, then it's totally okay to just simulcast to all of the platforms simultaneously, which is what we're doing right now, live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I don't think we're on any others, just those 3. But if you want to limit the size of your audience, you can put up a paywall, you can put up a registration gateway, and that's a great way to kind of collect additional information about your audience. So, talking about collecting additional information about your audience, you want to think about how to collect actionable data from your broadcasts. So social media is great for providing aggregate data. If you're doing a Facebook Live broadcast, you can dial in and you can see men versus women, or like how many people in Illinois in a certain age range tuned into your broadcast. But you're not going to get granular information. We're not going to know that that Anthony in Texas is watching the broadcast. So in cases where you need, where you're using live streaming as like a lead generation tool, putting a registration gateway in front of it is a great way to collect that information. So that's just creating a simple landing page through your website with a little bit of copy about your event, and then having a little contact form that says, fill this out and we'll tell you when the event goes live. A couple companies that are doing this really well that you can kind of look at as leaders in this area are Glassdoor, Smashfly, and HubSpot. So if you see any advertisements for any of their live streams, I definitely recommend you sign up for them and pay attention to the entire event experience, from that first email that they send, or even going to that landing page, that first email that they send, and then how they follow up with you after. Glassdoor, Smashfly, HubSpot are all really, really great at it. Another thing that you want to think about is following up with your participants right before and also one day after your event. So we always send an email or an e-blast out like 5, 10, 15 minutes before a broadcast, and that helps drive people to be at the broadcast at the appropriate time. But you also want to follow up a day afterwards and just see what they thought about it and kind of get more information from them. Now, the number one thing to think about in terms of audience is their engagement, right? Like I said earlier. A question that we always ask our clients is, why does your event need to be live? And sometimes there's not like a good answer to that question, and that's okay, but in those situations you can do a live to tape broadcast, you can do a traditional kind of videography package and put something together afterwards. But the number one reason to why something needs to be live is because you want to connect your audience to your content in real time, right? So that's something that you need to think about. There's a couple of simple engagement tools that you can use to kind of drive that audience interaction. A moderated Q&A is a great example. That's actually something that we do for this show. is during the broadcast, we collect comments across all of the platforms. And then at the very end, we'll follow up with the questions that have been asked and just answer them at the end. So we have a moderator who's like collecting the questions, and then those get fed to me and Erica or the other co-hosts or whatever, and then we answer them at the end. So that's a good way to drive engagement. People love having their questions answered during a broadcast, and so they'll often like stay tuned till the very end to see if their question gets answered. Another good engagement tool is a live chat. Twitch and YouTube both have great live chats. You can also, there's tons of chat widgets available to plug into your website if you want to encourage communication that way. And the whole point of this is to just keep your audience watching and keep them engaged for much longer. So when you have those engagement opportunities, they stick around. And that's why you see on an average live stream, you'll see people tuning in for like over 30 minutes, which when was the last time you watched like a 30-minute video on YouTube? Maybe never. I don't know if I ever have. The final bucket, so we had our venue, that's all set. Then we had our audience, and that's all good. Audience is ready to be engaged. The third thing you need to prepare is the actual production, right? So I'll give you a couple of general production guidelines. This changes based on, every event is a snowflake. They're all different, and that's okay, but here's some kind of like general guidelines. We recommend at least 2 cameras for a broadcast quality or a professional broadcast. Having a couple of camera angles is just going to create that extra kind of dynamic energy that keeps people engaged a lot longer. But 1 camera is also okay if you're doing something simple like a press conference or a webinar or a broadcast from your home studio or like a vlog type stream, something like that. 1 camera is generally okay there. If you're doing 1 camera, that camera is likely to be fixed or static or fixed or static. So it's just going to be 1 shot that's just focused on 1 thing, and that camera never moves. Once you get into 2 cameras, you can have a couple of different shots. Traditionally you'll have your wide shot, which covers all of your action, and then you'll have a follow shot, which is kind of covering your action. So that camera is normally operated by a camera operator, and they're following, and so the camera's point of view is changing throughout the broadcast. And that's good to cover a moving target, someone that's speaking on stage, for example. When you get into 3 cameras, that 3rd shot, that's going to be your hero shot. So it's just another kind of dynamic shot that you can add. And that's going to be important for covering multiple targets, like a roundtable discussion or a panel discussion, something like that. You're going to need at least 3 cameras. I would say 3 cameras is also probably the bare minimum for any sports that you want to cover as well. Once you get into 4 cameras, that 4th camera is really going to be kind of a specialty shot. Maybe it's going to be on a jib or a slider. Maybe it's going to be off-site somewhere. Maybe it's going to be dedicated for instant replay. Or you could have multiple sets going on. So that's kind of when you would use a fourth camera. The second thing to consider as you're preparing your production is your graphics package, right? So graphics are used to convey important information to your audience or to transition between broadcast segments. So a typical graphics package will include a lower third, which will have like a name and a title, and it'll be kind of somewhere around this area on the screen. So it'll tell you like who is speaking. We'll also, for us, we normally include animated intros and outros and interstitials, so just kind of short, like 5-second segments to use as transitions or to convey information about like when we're coming back from lunch or what the next presentation is going to be about or something like that. And then if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation or a product demo, we normally have a picture-in-picture template as well, so that way you can see that PowerPoint as well as your camera feed. There have been studies that have shown that having an actual face on screen is actually really important for information to be recalled later. So if you're just giving like a PowerPoint presentation, throw a camera on screen with it, and people will just recall that information a lot better. I think that was a study. I probably didn't make that up. It's possible. We'll see. You can also include dynamic data as well, so things like Twitter hashtags or RSS tickers, scrolling tickers that kind of come up at the bottom of the screen, polls, other sorts of like changing information. That's great to pull into a live stream, and different companies will have different capabilities there, but it's important to ask about dynamic data that you can pull in, even like Facebook comments, Twitter comments, things like that. That's all great. So after your event is over, it's important to think about your post-engagement strategy. Now, oftentimes, you've produced your live stream, you have 8 hours of content, and it's kind of, a live stream is kind of ephemeral, right? So it exists only during the time that it's being broadcast. But you can actually create a ton of great clips from that, which you can release for months and months later. One thing you definitely want to do, or that we always recommend, is adding captions to your archived recording. So that's pretty simple to do if you're using a company like Temi or Rev or something like that. YouTube and I think Facebook will do automated captions. They're not 100% accurate, but it's a good place to start. But adding captions definitely increases the engagement for your content. You can also create a sizzle reel of your event, which is like a 2-minute package showing just the best moments. It's often a good idea to have a kind of behind-the-scenes camera operator who's capturing some of the other stuff, maybe collecting interviews throughout the day, something like that. So you can create that 2-minute sizzle reel and then release that in an e-blast after your event. And then you can also just grab, short, like 1-minute highlights from your event and then release those periodically throughout the year. Again, one great stream, if it's high quality, if it's a professional broadcast, you can generate months of content after that. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome, Nick. That was a wonderful deep dive you gave the audience today. I really learned a lot. I'm sure they learned a lot. Some good stuff. So there you have it. There's a lot to prepare when doing your live stream event, and it's all worth it. So after the break, stay tuned for an exciting new segment, don't go anywhere, and a live Q&A. So make sure to comment below and or use the hashtag #SodaLive. Don't go anywhere. Again, we'll be back after the break. See you soon.
Hello, Facebook fans. All of us at Travel Wisconsin are thrilled to have you from around the world join us in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, live on Facebook.
My name is Andrew Flackner, and Real Scout is honored to host the first live interview with Bob Goldberg as the new CEO of the National Association of Realtors.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Alicia Speri. I'm a criminal justice reporter at The Intercept.
Hello everyone, welcome to 60-Second Digest, where I'm going to take you on a quick journey through all of our key elements we talked about in today's deep dive. Right now I'm just taking a stroll downtown Chicago, so why don't you come with me, we'll have a lot of fun. Start the clock. Phase 1 is preparing your venue. You got to make sure that your audio, visual, and internet connection is all good to go. Got to make sure your mics are sounding smooth, your projection and PowerPoints are sweet, and your internet connection is solid. Phase 2, prepare your audience. Choose the best platform to host your live event. Wherever most of your fans are, that's the best platform for you. Also, keep them engaged. Do some fun stuff like a Q&A, giveaways, a quiz show, and afterwards you can check your analytics to see how much your audience have been engaged. Those are some good tips in spicing up your next event. Phase 3 is prepare your production. Make sure your equipment list is done, make some stellar graphics, and when it's loading day, get your cameras all set up for dynamic angles. Also, when you're ready to go technically, you're ready to go live, but it doesn't have to be over when it's finished. You could take that live stream, chop it up into segments, and archive it for people to view it later, or you could take that live stream, chop it up, and make a promotional video to get everyone pumped for your next event. And there you have it, a 60-second digest on planning your live stream event. Well, thank you for coming on this quick journey with me. I'll keep you updated on the other fun stuff I'm doing here in Chicago. See you soon. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the digest. I always think it's helpful to visually summarize a lot of detailed info. Plus, it was fun doing it in Chicago. All right, so let's take some questions here. Okay, first question. Nick, what has been your favorite gig to prep so far?
So every year we do the backstage and red carpet shows for Chicago Emmys, which is a great show for us. We partner with a lot of high schools and colleges in the area to, and they get their students involved in the broadcast. So it's great. We get to work with a bunch of up-and-coming kids who are like super excited about working on a live broadcast. We get to push them through different positions, camera operations, stream engineering, stuff like that. So that's always a lot of fun. There's a ton of coordination that goes into that because the crew is so massive. We'll have like 20 or 30 people. So I'm a big spreadsheet guy, so that event has definitely made me step up my spreadsheet game in terms of like organizing stuff. But yeah, that's always a really fun one to produce. And that's coming up in a couple of weeks too. November 10th?
I believe so.
Yeah, November 10th.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We have it prepped and in an Excel sheet. So
yeah.
that's good. That's right. Excel is our best friend here. So
that's right.
I love it. All right. Has there been any challenges you faced when coordinating events?
For sure. And I think now we have a lot of fail-safes kind of built into our workflow to deal with those challenges. The number one thing that we always do now is we do a site survey prior to an event. So if it's a new venue that we've never been to before, or even if it's one that we haven't been to in a while, we'll actually send a streaming engineer out prior to the event, and they will test the audio, video, and internet signal flows there. We just want to make sure that we understand exactly how everything is going to work. So prior to doing that, we have definitely ran into issues where maybe the internet wasn't quite as high as we thought it was going to be, or there was some sort of firewall that prevented us from accessing the internet or the streams. But now I think we have a pretty good system in place for dealing with those issues.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you, Nick, for everything. Remember, stay up to date with what our team is streaming. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you check out our website. All right, I'll see you next time, and happy streaming.